Then tonight a chance of rain with a low of 35. Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant at 26th and Lyndale in Minneapolis. Come in for the famous Nightingale burger or the ginger tamari chicken wings. View their menu or place a takeout order at nightingalempls.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
And it's the Gaily Show, but not with John Parker. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, who's usually the host of The Illegal Trans Woman here on lovely AM 950. But John Parker, I call him JP, is away. He's on vacation, and I'm thrilled for him. He asked me to sit in, and that's why you're hearing my voice and not his. So welcome to the Gaily Show on this Monday, the 14th of April. Okay, and I am thrilled. We have a big show. Some of you have never heard about me before, and I'll explain a little bit about me in a little bit. But I am thrilled that I've got someone on the line here for the big interview of this show, where I am thrilled. His name is Colin Gentry. He is a graduate student at the University of Missouri in Rolla, Missouri. Colin Gentry, welcome to the Gaily Show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I am thrilled to have you here. And so for background for the listeners, I wanted to have you on this show because Rolla, Missouri, population of about 20,000. Something incredible happened this past week with their municipal elections. It was a sweep of anti-LGBTQ candidates by pro-LGBTQ candidates in this small town. And Colin, you had something to do with this. You've told me you're not the organizer, but you were a super volunteer. But I'm going to think you were the organizer as well, based on what our little conversation has been so far. So, Colin, let's begin with this incredible achievement. But tell us about Rolla, please.
Sure. So Rolla is a really interesting community because you hear college town. It has this pretty big university relative to the city. It's about 9,000 students, and you think, oh, it's a college town. But really, people just call it a town with a college, not a college town. It is a very conservative area. If you just look at state, county, state, and national results, it's a very consistently heavy Republican area. The most liberal thing we've done recently was very narrowly vote to undo Missouri's abortion ban. It was by like 50 votes that won in Rolla. So it's a conservative area, and the student body doesn't have as much of an impact on the local politics as you'd expect. It's a engineering-heavy school, and so while still liberal on average, I'd say in my experience, the average student is a bit more conservative than your stereotypical college student. And generally, there's just a lot of apathy about politics. Students are very busy when it comes to their academics and extracurriculars. They just don't have the time or interest to really get involved, especially on the local scene. And so there's that contrast between this student body that could have a big impact if they got involved, locals who have a lot of mixed feelings about the university and its growth, and just all of the kind of diversity that the school brings to central rural Missouri that leads to a lot of very interesting dynamics in the local culture and in the politics.
And if folks are pulling their Rand McNally map out, Rolla is pretty much right in the middle on I-44 between Springfield, the capital of Missouri, and St. Louis. I have that right?
Jefferson City is the capital.
So okay.
Throw a dart in the middle of Missouri and you'll hit it. We call Rolla the middle of everywhere.
Okay, all right.
A couple hours from every big city.
All right, Springfield, Illinois. There you go, Ellie.
Oh, yeah.
You got it. You got the name right, but the wrong state. Okay, so Colin, I've been luckily, and I'm very impressed that Phelps County, where Rolla is located, has a local newspaper that keeps track of things that are going on. I mean, like literally, verbatim type, putting into the paper what people are saying at the city council. And if I have this right, and you tell me what I've got wrong, is you have a city council of, I don't know, 6 or 7 people with a mayor that but you had 4 city council members, as far as I can tell, that were pretty much rabid anti-LGBTQ. One in particular, a woman named Johnson, who apparently, and this is my characterization based on what she's done. I mean, she wanted to have a book removed from the local library. She apparently, and I think I wrote this down, objected to Rolla having a pride parade and having a pride event, and quoted pride being, quote, "It's pure evil and it is a war on our children," unquote. That's what at least the Rolla County newspaper referred to, quoted her in saying at one of the council meetings. How did this come up? I mean, yeah, a conservative, Missouri. Yep, it's the Bible Belt to a certain degree. Yep, you got all of that. But how did the council become so anti-LGBTQ? And then, Colin, I'm just going to let you run because I want you to talk about how you worked to get it so pro-LGBTQ.
Sure. So the council is actually 12 members.
Whoa, okay.
There are,
right.
So yeah, you wouldn't think of it reading the news because most of them are pretty quiet, but Rolla is divided into 6 districts or wards, and each one has 2 city council members that are elected on staggered 2-year terms. So every year, half of the city council is up for grabs. And the story kind of goes back to, I've been following, because why would I work on homework? I've been following local results and pulling data from the county clerks, and I have data going all the way back to 2007. And city council really wasn't that interesting for decades. It would just be the same people running again and again, usually unopposed, and maybe a couple hundred people would turn out to vote. When I first came to Rolla in 2019, we actually had a very progressive city council. There were some university faculty on the council. There was just generally very strong progressive people. There were people associated with Our Revolution and the Bernie Sanders campaign, and they were doing good work. We actually, in 2020, one of the wards that contains all the students very narrowly elected the first trans non-binary member of the council.
Wow.
Yeah, they won by 3 votes, I believe. And
okay.
Well,
that was history.
Yeah. And then came 2021, and there was a huge wave of backlash. Primarily, I believe, directed at Rolla had a mask mandate for COVID. That was very unpopular. But then, in general, there was a lot of perception of the councils being too liberal and not focused on local issues. And so, pretty resoundingly, I believe all 6 incumbents were running for re-election, and all 6 lost some of them races were really close, but in general, it was high turnout, huge wave, kind of wiping out all these incumbents.
Okay.
And that elected a lot more conservative people to the council who have just kind of been stuck there. Of the 12 people on the council, I believe 8 were last elected or re-elected unopposed. So nobody ran against them. And so we've had for now the past 4 years, a very conservative city council. This has mainly manifested in, like you said, the anti-LGBT activism. A lot of it is couched in that protecting the children notion of, we have nothing against pride. It's just, do we want these drag queens around children? Things like that. There'd also be a lot of attacks on the local homeless shelter.
The answer is yes, we do want them around children. But go ahead.
There'd be a lot of attacks on the local homeless community and the homeless shelter here. And even recently, the council narrowly voted to start the process of removing fluoride from the water based on conspiracy theories and shaky evidence. And so overwhelmingly, we got the sense that this was a council that was more interested in pointing fingers and jumping on whatever culture war they were seeing on Facebook than on actually dealing with boring stuff that people care about. Like there's no sidewalk in my neighborhood, or there's nowhere to park. And so it was a lot of people stepping up to the plate. There was a political action committee called Future for Phelps that was supporting these candidates and seeking out people who wanted to run. But it had people who stepped up and chose to run in all 6 elections. and of them, we won 4 of them, 3 by huge landslides, and then the other 2 races came really, really close. We had in one ward, we were only running a write-in candidate, and she came within 11 votes. And I'm sure if she was on the ballot, she would have won handily. And so it was a very successful election. I don't believe that it was necessarily a referendum on the LGBT community. I don't, that was not the central issue of the campaign. It was sort of a death by 1,000 cuts that these incumbents suffered, where the LGBT community, which Rolla has a very thriving community, was angry at their remarks in that regard. People who were frustrated about the fluoride vote or about the attacks on the homeless shelter, or generally just people who thought that this council was wasting time dealing with unimportant things, and wanted council members who would listen to them and who would get focused back on what matters for Rolla.
Okay. And you were able to do that. I mean, you've got, as you said, you got 4 candidates in, and they're all pro LGBTQ plus, if I understand correctly.
That's right. Yes, we have.
Do any of them identify as LGBTQ plus?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I know them relatively well, and I've never expressed that, but they've been active members, participants with the community. For example, we have one candidate who his first foray into Rolla politics that I know of was in 2023. In the aftermath of the 2023 Pride event was when some of the first big backlash came, and he stood before the council and spoke out in defense of Pride. Or several other of the victorious council members were involved with the Pride celebrations and helped volunteer to help make them happen, and have just generally been fixtures in the community that have been very supportive of the LGBT side of Rolla.
So what year was it that you had your first Pride event in Rolla?
The first Pride event. So the organization, there's a nonprofit called LGBTQ plus Rolla. And they first started organizing in 2019. A handful of students got in touch with the local community and started building that. And they started putting on events in 2020. The Pride events, I don't believe there was one I believe the first one was in 2021. And it started off as just like a picnic in a park. Come hang out, enjoy yourselves. And those had really impressive attendance for what they were. There was like 50 to 80 people. And then in 2023 was when they went big and had, the downtown festival grounds. There were food trucks, there were drag shows, there were tents, all sorts of events. And 2023 had about 500 attendees, and then 2024 was even a little bit bigger than that. And then the Pride events have just been growing, and the organization has also been hosting events throughout the year. You have like a drag show or other event every month or so, and those are all pretty well attended, not just by members of the organization, but by people in the community.
Okay. All right. So, not that Rachel Maddow is going to be knocking on your door, although she sure should, she and commentators in the liberal media are looking for stories about, backlash, about how maybe in light of Trump being elected and his administration, and trust me, there's a whole lot to talk about how horrible it has all become. And I'm sure you're aware for queer people generally, but certainly for trans people. But that there are things happening. We've got a couple of congressional candidates in Florida who got, who certainly got closer in terms of margin. We've had other successes that have occurred. And so do you think this is any of that that happened in Rolla, or, as a kind of a referendum on what's going on even in the larger sphere politically? Or do you think that this is just totally small town politics, but small town politics organized by somebody like you who has a mind of what is the big picture?
I think it shouldn't be treated fully as a referendum on Trump. Like I said, Rolla is still a heavily conservative area. I'm sure if the 2024 election was redone, the results will look about the same here.
Mm.
But I think it is an indication that a lot of people are burned out on the culture war. They want, especially in the local sphere, I've noticed that people tend to think a lot more empathetically and a lot more liberally when it comes to people in their neighborhood. It may be easy to get people ginned up and outraged about something they think that the LGBT community is doing in California, but then when you're talking about, no, they want to shut down that fun festival that you went to downtown last year, people don't go for it as readily.
Right.
So I'll say these are nonpartisan elections. No one was running under a given party, although the conservative candidates did go to explicitly events hosted by the local Republicans.
Right.
But on the ballot there were no Democrats or Republicans, and so I'd be hesitant to jump to saying that this shows that rural America is tired of Trump, but I think it does show that even your conservatives just want people who are going to do a good job and are going to be focused on what matters in the community.
Well, I'll tell you, for what it's worth, I live in a community west of the Twin Cities by about 35 miles. So it's out in the country. And I'll just tell you anecdotally, where Trump signs had been at farms and other locations, they are no longer there. And I don't know what that means. I have some hope about what it may mean. Okay.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. We have put on organized some protests in the area. I believe with like the hands off protest wave. We had one in Rolla that had good turnout, and it seemed like I wasn't able to attend, but just based on the reactions of people who were there, it seemed like they got pretty decent reception. These are not scientific means of assessing public sentiment, but definitely is good to see though that's it's not entirely Trump land down here.
Okay. Well, obviously, I mean, I just want to tell you, and I want to compliment you on your ability to do this grassroots grassroots, organizing. I mean, we're not talking about a massive amount of votes. I mean, I went through and looked at the percentage of vote, or the number of, just even the number of votes for some of the precincts. I mean, in the most votes that were cast looks like about 700 votes total that were cast. But some of your candidates, ran and won by like 65% or whatever. I mean, so obviously it wasn't close for some of the candidates. And so I think that really speaks greatly about your organizing. I saw something you put on Facebook where, I mean, you were pretty analytical about the different positions people have taken, and you were urging voters to go out and vote for different candidates. But it wasn't. I wouldn't say that it was like off the charts in terms of being overly political. And I think that was a really great approach for you, Colin. I mean, if I can say, it sounds like that's what was going to work in Rolla, and it did. I just want to, but I want to compliment you, because you and your colleagues, but I think a lot probably had to do with you, were able to pull something big off. This is big, even though it's a small town, even though, we're not even talking 1,000 votes per precinct. It's still a big thing. And so I want to thank you for doing that work.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The people really underestimate the impact of local politics. You can definitely see it in the turnout percentages. The highest turnout precinct was about 30%, and most weren't even close to that. And that shows there's a lot of apathy and a lot of people who don't know what their local government can do for them or to them. This election really was, in many ways, a wave just like 2021, where you had much higher turnout than average, and that kind of wiped away the incumbents. In some of the wards, we saw the biggest landslide victories in decades. And so I think a lot of that can be attributed to the politics of it. People tired of attempts to remove fluoride or attack the homeless community, the LGBT community, but also to organization. We did a lot of getting out the vote. There were, in some of these, and I believe most of these wards, we knocked every single door, or just about as many as we could. We had signs all over. We had a lot of activity on social media. We had people standing outside of polling places on election day in some precincts. And so, and our opponents, in contrast, barely got out there. You could tell they started getting scared because they started putting out yard signs and going door to door, but it was clear that they didn't have the volunteer base that we had, or the level of kind of polish in their messaging. And I think that showed just as much as people's frustration with their current council. Is a lot of the time, local elections, it's not up to your platform or your policies. It is, do people know you? Do people recognize your name? Do they see you as someone who is present in the community and someone who'd be good for it?
Well, Colin, just thank you for that. And thanks for that, just that great grassroots effort, and for reminding us really what it takes to get the vote out. All right. Well, listen, I've got to go, but I really appreciate you being on the show, and keep up the good work. And I hope that you consider getting further into the political sphere. All right. Because I can tell that you've got a great skill set. All right.
All right. Thanks so much. And to the folks out there, I'll say that it's really easy to get involved in local stuff. Just start going to city council meetings, start looking at election results. Do you have people who've been running unopposed for years? Are there groups in your community trying to recruit people to run? And consider running. It's a lot easier than you may think. And you'd be surprised the impact you can have by pushing for forward-thinking, common-sense policies, or even just taking space and keeping people who are regressive and focused on attacking people out of office. And so if you haven't thought about running for local office, I would absolutely encourage you to do it, or to find someone who is and help them out.
Okay. Thank you for that, Colin. I really, really appreciate it. All right, listeners, we've been speaking to Colin Gentry. He's from Rolla, Missouri, and helped orchestrate this sweep of the Rolla City Council, voting out anti-LGBTQ candidates and getting those who are more favorable to my community in. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, you're going to get more about me on The Gaily Show. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, sitting in for John Parker. We'll be back in a second.
It's time to experience the amazing flavors of eatlocalminnesota.com. It's your key to unlocking the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities. Nightingale off 26th and Lindale is where good times and great flavors unite. Chef Carrie keeps it fresh with seasonal dishes, or savor classics like the Nightingale burger, steak tartare, and irresistible chocolate pot de creme. Explore tasty vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options, and enjoy craft cocktails, curated wines, and half-price wine bottles every Monday. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. More at nightingalempls.com. Maverick's Real Roast Beef in Roseville sets the bar when it comes to roast beef sandwiches. But let's not forget their other mouthwatering offerings, from Philly steak to turkey bacon avocado, BLT, crispy chicken, fish, brisket, and pulled pork. The menu is a flavor-packed delight. Don't miss out on their delicious variety. Explore the full menu at mavericksbeef.com. Your taste buds will thank you.
Hi, I'm Corey Wisco, president of the Welshire. The Welshire is a community that provides memory care to its residents, and we have a location in Bloomington and also another one that we just opened in Medina, Minnesota. But the big question is that why do people come to Welshire? Many of the people coming to Welshire are coming from other memory care communities where they maybe haven't received bathing, they've had problems taking medication, or inconsistency with staffing. Welshire has never used a temporary staff. We always have our own people, and it's those people that make the difference. We have always felt it's so important to have 24-hour nursing in the building. The other thing is you have to have an amazing activity team. Nobody employs more activity people than Welshire. Our activities begin in the morning, go all the way through the evening, 7 days a week. So if you have a loved one that needs memory care, come visit welshiremn.com and book a tour today.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067 or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our local leaders. How do you reward your employees? How do you appreciate your business partners? Thousands of local organizations just like yours count on Minuteman Uptown for promotional products. We craft custom awards and plaques. We print your logo on apparel, office supplies, and thousands of other items. Minuteman Uptown helps you reward employees and stay top of mind with customers and vendors. We print everything. Contact us today at mpuptown.com.
And we're back. The Gaily Show. This is Ellie Krug sitting in for John Parker for JP. And I know that I hit you with a big interview right away because I really wanted to speak to Colin Gentry from Rolla, Missouri. And so let me just give you a little bit of idea about me. And then I've got a bunch of other things I want to talk to you about because I don't ordinarily get to do live shows. Ordinarily, my show, The Illegal Trans Woman, I tape on Fridays. The show airs on Saturdays at 4 o'clock and then goes into a podcast after that. And by the way, you're probably realizing right at this moment a couple of things. Number one, I'm not nearly as smooth and polished as John Parker. He is one of my heroes on this station because he is so incredibly good and so incredibly professional. Me, I'm more of a hack. The second thing you may be noticing is I sound like a dude, okay? But if you're online and you're watching the show right now, you're seeing a woman with blonde hair and glasses and doesn't look too bad for getting close to 70 years old, okay? And that would be because I'm transgender. So the voice does not match the appearance. That's just one of the effects of transitioning genders later in life, which I did. And the whole sordid story can be found at elliekrug.com. And it's certainly, if you want, listen to my show, The Illegal Trans Woman, where I advocate for my community in a pretty forceful way because my community needs as many advocates as possible. And that gets me to what's going on right now in America at the present time. Again, I don't get to talk usually live about things that are literally happening on the day of me speaking. But before I came on the air, a couple of big things dropped, and I want to talk about them. One of those is that President Bukele from El Salvador is at the White House today. And as you know, he's operating the notorious prison in El Salvador that has more than 200 and maybe more than 300 Venezuelans and other people born outside the United States that our country saw fit to just grab off the streets without any due process whatsoever, without giving them the opportunity to consult a lawyer or appear before a judge, and then put them on a plane and send them to a place where at least the going word is they will never return from or ever get out of. In many ways, it sounds like Auschwitz, or, Bukoban, or, you name all of the other notorious prisons of the Nazi regime. It sounds like one of those. And so I give you that background because Buchenwald, sorry, Ellie, let's just get this right, okay? See, there's the part where JP would have gotten it right initially, and here's the hack. But today, in the Oval Office, with Trump in front of that fireplace, President Bukele said that he was not going to return Abrego Garcia, even though the Supreme Court has said he should be returned to our country. The Trump administration over the weekend essentially told the federal judge who is in charge of the Abrego Garcia case that it was not going to comply with that judge's orders about taking steps to return Garcia to the United States. I mean, you essentially, so in addition to everything else, I happen to be a lawyer. I graduated from law school in 1982. I'm a trial lawyer, more than 100 trials to my credit before I stopped doing that in 2012. But it never in my life have I ever witnessed a lawyer, let alone from the federal government, from the Justice Department, tell a judge, we're not going to follow your order. Never in my life. I mean, that is beyond the pale. It really is. And so this afternoon, though, or this morning, President Bukele from El Salvador and Trump were speaking. And Trump said to President Bukele that he needs to build 5 more prisons because Trump plans to send to El Salvador homegrown. That would be homegrown Americans there. And trending right now on Blue Sky is a piece about Joe Kent, who I have no idea about, and I didn't get a chance to check out his name, but go Google Joe Kent. He's Trump's pick as the counterterrorism specialist, okay? And he has said, Joe Kent, America's counterterrorism czar, has said that he wants to treat Antifa and BLM as terrorists. Now, you know, Antifa is, according to Donald Trump, anybody with long hair who decides to stand up and protest. And BLM happens to be just any black person who decides to protest. Okay? I mean, and so we're now signaling this government, the highest, the president of the United States, who has been empowered by our Supreme Court, the corrupt Supreme Court, in many ways corrupt. This president has now said, we're going to start sending U.S. citizens, people born in the United States, to El Salvador to never return. I don't know about you, but if that does not scare the hell out of you, I don't know what's going to scare you about our government, because we're done. Oh, we're past. And by the way, I believe they are still sending flights to El Salvador. They're taking for people born outside the United States, immigrants. They're taking them to El Salvador still. I believe that that's even happening now, even despite the Supreme Court saying that people were supposed to go in front of a judge before any of that happening. And I don't believe they're doing that. So we are in a full-blown dictatorship at this point, where the courts, they don't matter to Donald Trump. He's not going to listen to them. And as I've said, if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, I don't know what's going to scare you relative to our government, because we have lost the rule of law. It sure as heck looks like it, and mainstream media is going to kind of trip, they're going to step around it, and because they're scared to death. I don't know if you saw Trump's tweet about 60 Minutes. I watched the 60 Minutes pieces last night. One was on Greenland, and the other was on El Salvador. And, Trump saying that 60 Minutes disrespected him and has become too political, and that 60 Minutes should be shut down. CBS should be shut down. The FCC should revoke their license. And then Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman, he's more than happy to go and do that. We are, in the span of less than 90 days, we're in crazy land. We're in crazy town. Never in my life would I have ever expected this. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I got some other stuff to talk about that, because I can talk to you live. Okay, you're listening to me, Ellie Krug, sitting in for John Parker on the Gaily Show. And if you like what you hear, go visit my website, elliekrug.com. And if you really like what you hear, go start listening to my show, The Illegal Trans Woman, that airs at 4 o'clock on Fridays. We'll be back in a sec. Thanks.
Hello, Hello, Minnesota. This is Tom Hartman, and you can catch me every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's smart radio for smart people. Hey, it's Tom. As the birds begin to sing and the days grow longer, there's no better time to spring into savings than now with All Energy Solar. Spring is perfect for home improvements, so why not choose a project that saves you money and helps create a cleaner, greener planet? While solar panels require an initial investment, the savings on your energy bills quickly add up. With a lifespan of at least 25 years, your system from All Energy Solar can save you tens of thousands of dollars over time. Act now and you can still take advantage of the 30% federal tax credit. Plus, you may qualify for additional incentives depending on where you live. The future is uncertain, but with solar energy, you can lock in your energy rates for years to come. With All Energy Solar's experience and expertise, they'll guide you toward a greener future and unlock the full potential of solar power. Take the first step toward energy independence and a greener future. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com. That's allenergysolar.com.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hey, it's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, designed for those of us more seasoned, I'll say, with informative talk on everything from health, finance, local and regional news, volunteerism, spirituality, and even a bit of humor tossed in. So if you're proud to be a more seasoned listener, tune in to New Beginnings Sunday afternoons at 1 right here on the progressive voice of Minnesota, AM 950.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy today with a high of 52. Then tonight, rain possible with a low of 35. Let Natural Lawn handle your lawn care so you can enjoy your lawn. Organic-based, environmentally friendly lawn care for over 30 years. Safer products for kids, pets, and the planet. 100% satisfaction guarantee. More at naturallawn.com.
AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
And we're back. The Gaily Show. Usually with John Parker, but today with me, Ellie Krug, sitting in for the illustrious John Parker. I hope he's enjoying his vacation and his time away. And I hope he's not regretting asking Ellie Krug to sit in for him. I know. Like I said, I'm a hack. Now, before we took our break, I was talking about Trump. I mean, essentially saying, not essentially, him saying, I mean, we've got to watch this in the media. Let's not just sugarcoat it. I mean, Trump saying he will start sending homegrown, that would be citizens of the United States, to El Salvador. Now, just if you have never interacted with the transgender community, and this is not going to be a long explanation, but let me just lay out something for you. Because ever since the Trump administration began, beginning with one of the very first executive orders in which Trump announced that the policy of the government from here forth would be that man and women are man and women based on the cells, the first cells that were created at the time of fertilization, and essentially saying there's no such thing as transgender people. Ever since that time, this government has been aiming to erase transgender people from public life. I mean, House Speaker Mike Johnson has said, you know, God created men and women, and there is nothing in between and nothing else. And I am, and my community are incredibly, incredibly concerned that it will soon become the policy of the United States to not only figuratively erase transgender people from literature because they took the T out of the Stonewall um, uh, National Monument in New York City. They took the T out, so it's no longer LGBTQ, it's LGBTQ. Not only to erase us from government documents and government terminology, but my community is concerned that we will literally get erased. I mean, that we will be taken off the streets because the Trump administration believes that we should not exist. And I've got to tell you, when I hear when Trump talk about, we're going to start sending our homegrown down to El Salvador. I happen to be homegrown. Okay. I do. I also happen to be an advocate. I've got this radio show. I've got a newsletter. I've got a Substack. I am vocal at school board meetings. I'm an elected school board official. And I am, so much so that I'm attracting attention because of my advocacy. And there are other transgender advocates out there doing the kind of work that I'm doing, some of them doing incredibly way better than I am. And I've just got to tell you, okay, it has gotten so far and so much in my life, with people in my life scared to death about me, about my future, that, I have been asked and I have fulfilled a request to create a list of people to contact if I go missing. And I know that sounds, so, over the top. But everyone, who in the world would have ever thought that the government would snatch people off the street without due process, without talking to a judge, without letting them see a lawyer, send them to a foreign country, to a gulag in a foreign country, with the words that, they would never, ever be returned, and admit multiple, not only Arbrego Garcia, but others, that multiple people had done nothing wrong, should not have been taken. And for the government then to say, we're not going to do anything to bring them back. This is appalling. And so for a government to do that, if you're transgender, let me just tell you, you're wondering. And I have been telling people, for my community, we are somewhere, for transgender people in America right now, we are somewhere between 1933 and 1939 Nazi Germany. The question being, what's next? How bad will it get? And the biggest question, should I stay or should I go? Yeah. Should I leave the country? Should I do that? And it's a question I'm asking myself. Absolutely. There's so much important work for me to do here, and I really want to stay and I want to fight. I do. But I do not want to end up, and I will tell you this, I do not want to end up in a men's prison, because that's where they would put me, in El Salvador. I don't. And if that, again, sounds over the top, just read up a little bit on trans people and what's going on in America right now with them. Okay? Because it is horrific. All right, we're going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to talk to you about some other stuff. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, sitting in for John Parker on The Gaily Show. I hope that you are okay with me being here. And if you're not, well, write to John Parker and tell him, don't ever let that Ellie Krug be on your show ever again. All right, we'll be back in a second. Thank you.
This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, weekdays at 5 p.m. On our show, you'll hear about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with the latest news from Turtle Island. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weekdays at 5 p.m. or watch the show on Native Roots Radio social media accounts. Ho-wah!
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Our station is located on a marsh, and we do our best not to disturb that environment. So I was thrilled to discover Natural Lawn. Their safer products and soil tests ensure that your lawn will be healthy, lush, and green. I don't even have to worry about bringing my furry friend to the station, thanks to the great care from Natural Lawn. I highly recommend Natural Lawn to keep your lawn beautiful, healthy, without compromising safety and sustainability. More at naturalawn.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
They'll challenge your authority because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
All right, we're back. Ellie Krug sitting in for John Parker on the Gaily Show. I'm getting used to John Parker's bumper music. My bumper music happens to be Queen. But I can see why he's got Gaily music for a Gaily Show. It's very nice. All right. Okay, this is the last segment of the show. And I've mentioned in the segment before this that I'm a lawyer and a trial lawyer, civil trial lawyer. And so I've been keeping a keen eye on what's been going on with the legal community and Trump's executive orders targeting various firms. Right now, what we have, I think the count is maybe 8 firms that have caved. Some of them have caved to Trump without even being the subject of an executive order. I mean, just on the idea that they had engaged in diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which, by the way, are incredibly important things because the legal profession historically has been dominated by white Christian men. I mean, it wasn't until the 50s that you started to have Jewish lawyers be able to join larger firms, and certainly up into the 70s and 80s, you had lawyers of color being excluded because they weren't white. And certainly LGBTQ lawyers excluded even to today. So the diversity, equity, inclusion efforts at law firms were very important to help try and make the law firms more representative of the communities and the clients they represented. All right. That's what DEI is all about. But now we've got a number of law firms, I think it's 8, that have caved to Trump. Some of them with, as I said, without executive orders, and who have agreed to provide pro bono. Now, pro bono means free legal services. Now, usually pro bono is used to help low-income people, people who cannot afford legal services. That's usually what pro bono is all about, helping somebody stay in their apartment when they're the subject of a wrongful eviction, somebody to help somebody to deal with bills or medical bills that are outstanding that maybe are unfair, things like that. Okay, family law issues. That's what pro bono historically has been. But Trump now has signaled that he has all of these conservative causes. Nearly $1 billion worth of pro bono legal services have been pledged by these firms that have caved to Trump. Nearly $1 billion. That's an astronomical amount of money, lawyer time, free lawyer time that Donald Trump wants these weak law firms to devote to conservative causes that he selects. So it's like him having created his own private army of lawyers to do his bidding. Now, that has sent chills throughout the legal profession. Now, there are some law firms that have refused to buckle, Jenner and Block in Chicago, and other firms, Mark Elias's firm for sure. They're all refusing to buck, and some of them have gone to court and gotten injunctions against Trump's executive orders, which, by the way, don't have the force of law of anything, but that's beside the point. And so they've gone to do that. And so, but we have this wave going through the legal profession right now about really what is the role of lawyers? I mean, if we can't stand up for the Constitution, we can't stand up for free speech, we can't stand up for righting the wrongs of the legal profession, what the heck are we? And I talk to you all about this because the concern is that just causes, people and organizations that have just causes, the right to redress the government, which is laid out in the First Amendment of the Constitution, that we may not be able to get that if lawyers are unwilling to represent people with those just causes. So again, the value of being live on the air. Today, Harvard announced that it was bucking, Harvard University, that it was bucking the Trump administration's efforts to take away $9 billion of funding unless Harvard University essentially agreed to let the Trump administration govern Harvard University in a variety of ways. And Harvard has said, no, we're not going to do that. And you know what? They had a law firm that they hired that sent Trump a 2-page letter that has said, we're not going to buck. You're going to have to sue us. We've done great things around preventing anti-Semitism on our campuses. That is the pretext, by the way, that the Trump administration is using to go after law firms, or after colleges and universities, that they're not doing enough to prevent anti-Semitism, which that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in dismantling our institutions of higher learning. All right, so, but lawyer, okay, a law firm is representing Harvard in doing that. And that's why we need to have lawyers resisting the Trump regime. Okay, well, I'll tell you something. It looks like I'm just about out of time. And I have loved being here, filling in for John Parker on the Gaily Show. I hope that you have liked what I've said. And if you want, again, check me out, Ellie Krug. Just go to elliekrug.com. Listen to my show, The Illegal Trans Woman, on Fridays at 4 o'clock Central Standard Time. That goes into podcasts where you get and you can access it wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to my producer, Patrick, who's had to do a little math today, but not a whole lot. He's kind of cruised a bit, but he's a great producer. And listeners, thank you for putting up with me, for putting up with my style of pushes and starts and ahs and ums. It's just the way I am because I'm real. All right. And so is John Parker. I want to make sure he is too. All right. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, over and out.
Greg Bakken here. Like you.